The antique shop smelled of dust and forgotten things. Sunlight struggled to pierce the grime on the windows. Emily coughed, waving her hand to clear the air in front of her. She stepped carefully, navigating a maze of towering furniture and teetering stacks of china. She was looking for something to fill the emptiness in her small apartment, something to distract her from the recent breakup with her fiancé. She rounded a corner, her eyes falling upon a shelf crowded with antique dolls. Each had a vacant stare, their painted eyes following her movements. One doll in particular drew her attention. It sat perched upon a velvet cushion, its porcelain skin eerily lifelike. This doll was different. This doll felt real. The doll was breathtaking, a true masterpiece of craftsmanship. She wore a tattered white gown, reminiscent of a wedding dress, its fabric frayed and yellowed with age. Delicate lace gloves adorned her delicate hands, each finger meticulously sculpted. Her hair, a cascade of golden curls, framed a face of unsettling beauty, almost too perfect to be real. But it was the eyes that truly captivated Emily, drawing her in with their lifelike intensity. Painted a vivid blue, they held a depth of expression that sent shivers down her spine, as if they could see into her soul. A small handwritten card leaned against the doll's stand, its edges worn and fragile. It read, Anya, the Porcelain Bride, a name that seemed to whisper secrets of a forgotten past. Emily felt an inexplicable pull towards the doll, a sense that Anya was meant to be hers, as if fate had brought them together. Ignoring the prickling unease at the back of her neck, Emily decided to buy her, unable to resist the doll's eerie allure. She carefully lifted Anya from the shelf, surprised by her unexpected weight, as if she carried more than just porcelain. The doll felt cold to the touch, sending a tremor through her, a chill that seemed to seep into her bones. Even as she carried Anya to the counter, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the doll's painted eyes were following her every move, watching her with an almost sentient awareness. Back in her apartment, Emily placed Anya on the mantelpiece. The doll seemed to dominate the room, its presence impossible to ignore. Emily sat on the couch, trying to lose herself in a book, but the words swam before her eyes. Her mind kept returning to her recent heartbreak. Mark, her fiancé, had abruptly ended their engagement. He said he couldn't handle the intensity of their relationship. Emily was devastated. She had given her heart to him, only to be left with a gaping void in its place. Looking up, she found herself staring at Anya. The doll seemed to be staring back, a knowing smirk playing on its porcelain lips. Emily quickly looked away, telling herself it was just her imagination, but a seed of doubt had been planted. A seed that would soon blossom into full-blown terror. As the days turned into nights, Emily became aware of subtle changes in her apartment. It started with small things, barely noticeable at first. Things were not where she had left them. Books shifted on the shelves, and picture frames tilted at odd angles. She would hear whispers in the dead of night, soft murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The whispers grew louder each night, filling her with an unshakable sense of dread. Her sleep was plagued by vivid nightmares, each dream more disturbing than the last, leaving her exhausted and on edge. In these dreams, Anya was always present. The doll seemed to come to life, moving with a sinister grace, her porcelain face contorted into a grotesque mask of rage. The once beautiful doll now appeared menacing and full of malice. One night, Emily woke with a start. Her heart raced as she tried to shake off the remnants of her nightmare. A cold sweat clung to her skin. She felt a chill run down her spine, making her shiver uncontrollably. The room was plunged in darkness, but she could feel a presence. It was as if the shadows themselves were watching her. A pair of eyes were watching her. She could feel their gaze, cold and unblinking, piercing through the darkness. She turned her head slowly, her heart pounding against her ribs. The fear was almost paralyzing, but she had to know what was there. Moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating Anya on the mantelpiece. The doll seemed to glow with an eerie light. The doll's head was turned, its blue eyes fixed on Emily with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. It was as if the doll was alive, watching her every move. Emily tried to convince herself it was just the moonlight playing tricks on her. She took deep breaths, trying to calm her racing heart. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. The feeling of dread was too real, too intense to be just her imagination. Section 5. Cold Eyes Watching. Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains seemed to whisper secrets she couldn't decipher. The whispers grew louder, the movements in the shadows more frequent. It was as if the house itself was alive, conspiring against her. She started seeing Anya everywhere, her blue eyes staring at her from the depths of the bathroom mirror, unblinking and cold. From the dark recesses of her closet where the doll seemed to lurk, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her once comforting apartment had transformed into a prison of fear. The walls seemed to close in on her, suffocating her with their oppressive silence. She couldn't escape Anya's gaze. It was relentless, following her every move with a sinister intent. It followed her every move, filled with a malice that chilled her to the bone. The doll's eyes seemed to bore into her soul, uncovering her deepest fears. Emily was trapped in a waking nightmare. Every corner of her home held a new terror, a new reminder of her helplessness. One evening, she returned home to find a vase shattered on the living room floor. The sight of the broken pieces sent a shiver down her spine. It had been her grandmother's, a cherished heirloom passed down through generations. Now it lay in pieces at the foot of the mantelpiece, a symbol of her crumbling sanity. Right where Anya sat, her cold porcelain face an image of serene indifference. The doll seemed to mock her, its expression unchanging. Emily was sure the doll had moved. She could almost hear the faint sound of its porcelain limbs shifting. She could feel it, a malevolent energy that permeated her apartment. It was as if the very air had turned against her, thick with an unseen menace. Section 6. Anya's Apparition. One night, the nightmare spilled over into reality. Emily awoke to the sound of her own name being whispered. She sat up in bed, her heart racing. The room was ice cold, the air heavy with a cloying floral scent. A white mist swirled in the center of the room, solidifying into a chillingly familiar form. Anya stood at the foot of Emily's bed, but she was no longer a lifeless doll. She was flesh and blood, her blue eyes burning with an unnatural light. Her once lovely face was contorted in a mask of rage. Her voice, when she spoke, was a guttural rasp that seemed to come from the depths of hell. "You will not have him!" Anya hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "He is mine!" Emily understood. Anya was not just a doll, she was a vessel for a jealous spirit, a woman scorned, forever yearning for a love that was not hers to claim. Emily, fueled by a surge of anger and terror, found her voice. "You do not belong here!" she shouted, her voice trembling. "Leave this place! Leave me alone!" Anya lunged, her spectral hands reaching for Emily's throat. Emily fell back against the headboard, her eyes wide with fear. But even in the face of unimaginable terror, a spark of defiance ignited within Emily. This was her apartment, her life, and she refused to surrender it to a vengeful spirit. Gathering her courage, Emily grabbed the antique silver hand mirror on her bedside table. She held it up to Anya, the polished surface reflecting the apparition's horrifying visage. Anya recoiled with a shriek, her form flickering as if consumed by the reflection. The room grew colder, the air thick with the stench of decay. Emily pressed on, her voice firm despite her terror. "You are nothing but a shadow," she yelled, her voice echoing in the sudden silence. "You have no power over me!" With a final, ear-splitting scream, Anya vanished. The room returned to normal, the only evidence of the ghostly encounter being the lingering chill in the air and the faint scent of decay. Emily never bought another antique doll. The experience had left an indelible mark on her psyche. She had stared into the abyss of the supernatural and emerged forever changed. Though the fear lingered, so did her newfound strength. She had faced her darkest fears and triumphed. The memory of Anya, the porcelain bride, would always be with her, a chilling reminder that some things are best left undisturbed, lost in the dusty aisles of forgotten antique shops. And Emily, forever scarred by her encounter, knew she would never be truly alone. The whispers of the past, like the lingering scent of decay, would forever follow her.